do the repairs on. So it's prepared under a contractual arrangement. So we pay annual street lighting fees, and they're responsible for maintenance of those particular street lights.
It was probably 6 weeks ago now. I had a lady in Sheridan Lane. She had 2 out down there, and there's one from a lady that works in Hanley Street. It was out, so Marianne reported them all. They can't even fix the one in Hanley Street, essentially, but never touched the 2 in Sheridan Lane. They're still out. So, yeah.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor. I remember when our former general manager was here, we had the same problem in Cootamundra, and I asked him if a council staff member could be rostered on for 3 hours every 3 months, so he can go around and do a drive around the whole town and write a list of all lights that are out, then pass them on to Essential Energy. Because it seems to be, if council report them broken, they get a lot more action than an individual ratepayer rings up and complains about it. So maybe that's something we need to look at, whether in Gundagai and Cooter, like a ranger or someone gets employed for 3 hours overtime or whatever on one night every 3 months and just done a whole run around every street and mark out every light that's out. Because I know a hell of a lot of people come up to me and say there's lights out everywhere. I've reported myself and they just don't get fixed.
No, I think that'd be a good idea. We'd probably have to allot someone to just do that 3 hours, go around the town. But there are, Grant, you're right.
I'll go talk about that.
Oh, right, mate. You go.
Just to relieve the issue we've got, we've been about 2 months until we can figure out the cemetery attendant. We've got a new cemetery attendant starting Tuesday, and we need to guys spraying the lawn cemetery. I think we're going to he has one.
Thanks, Clint. Actually, Marianne just said Ian Armstrong from Essential Energy is doing a audit on all Cooter lights, so she'll get him to do an audit here on our lights. The ones that are out, there's still a red light on the back of them that still shines. I know that's essential. Certainly not these smart lights that we're hoping to get. Anyway, we'll certainly look into that. The next speaker is Nancy Lawton.
Why don't you turn it off? It's probably a good idea. One of the other things that I wanted to say, we still have the Citizen of the Year up there. But what I'm really on about is cemeteries and funerals. There's an awful muck-up with whoever digs the holes for the dead people. And I found that I believe that there's a power-crazy woman in Cootamundra who organises it. And they can't, the undertaker can't get holes dug because they have to wait. The dead person has to wait. I suppose they're waiting anyway. But in the old days, Gundagai used to, when they hear of someone dying, they would go and dig the hole. But I believe now it's Cootamundra-Gundagai. It's all run from Cooter. And people dig the holes in the wrong spot. They put the numbers on the wrong place. And it's very upsetting for the bereaved of the councillors, of the dead. And I think it would be a very good idea that there was somebody in Gundagai who knew about it and that were able to work with the funeral director. And I believe he's had trouble and yeah, that's the end. That's the end of my complaint. What can you do about it?
Okay. Yeah. We've got a cemetery attendant starting next Tuesday. We haven't had one for quite some time. First, a comment about the funeral director. And I know there was an issue last week. But I have full confidence in my staff as to the directions they were given and the directions they carried out. And I appreciate the fact that it's a terrible thing that happened.
It's not just last week. It's been going on for a number of weeks. And why does it have to come from Cootamundra, who digs the holes?
The people dig the holes come to do.
Right.
We haven't had a cemetery attendant that organises that sort of thing and done without them.
And there's going to be somebody in Gundagai. All right.
Thanks, Nancy, and I appreciate, it's a time when family don't want any interruptions. when there's a death in the family. So yeah, we'll certainly want to overcome any of those issues. So thank
Very
you for
good.
your
I will leave it
concern.
in your hands. Is there any possibility of getting
Yeah,
that thing moved somewhere else?
And the clock up the back.
What, up the back?
And the clock up the back again.
You gotta put it up the back here.
What used to be
I think we want it somewhere where people can see it.
the clock.
I'm
the board,
talking about
the
the,
board's going to be. I'm talking about the clock used to be up the back.
no.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you've brought this up several times before.
Numerous times.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I will expect something to be done.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Right. Will someone like to move, go back to the council, move Councillor Palmer, second to Councillor Kelly. Apologies, I think everyone's here, are they? No apologies. No disclosures of interest. Confirmation of the minutes. Questions out of the last minutes.
Mr. Mayor, 831, the final tourism and economic development strategy. Council were going to wait for 7 days to see if there were any objections to the insertion of the Cootamundra Tourism Action Group committee's things that they wanted to put in. Did we get any objections or did they go in?
I haven't seen them.
There was no objections, and Miriam's included those in the revised plan.
Mr. Mayor, just with the regards to the 355 committee membership of the Showground Users Group, what's the situation in Gundagai? Is there a trust that runs that, or just
Right.
explain what the difference is between Gundagai and Cootamundra for us?
Yeah, what they do in Gundagai, there's a trust, which is the chairman's Gordon Lindley, and then they have representatives from each group on that. But the trust runs the whole area, and then each group runs their separate organisation and separate grounds. Like you might have the Camp After Day grounds, you'll have the sheepdog trial blokes at certain times of year, you'll have the Pony Club. They have a lot of events. There's a question event last week that was run for the Pony Club. The Race Club do all their area. They have their own caretaker, the Race Club, full-time caretaker. He maintains all their grounds. They have a volunteer. Bob Henry does a lot of mowing that for them, different times. Dave Brundle, the trainer.
So does
They
it,
don't have a 355 committee. They just all, and each different. I think they might pay an amount to be a member of the trust.
so does it have to be a 355 committee over there? Can we revert back to a trust?
I couldn't see why not. There's no reason why they got to be 355.
It's just that I know, speaking to members of committee, it's very onerous for a lot of them on all the 355 reporting commitments and things like that. Whereas they seem to be going along nicely, then all of a sudden we've put all this impost on them. I think it's just easier to hand it back to them and to say, run it yourselves.
They've been a 355 committee for a while, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's a council decision to establish a 355 committee, and it's a council decision to disestablish a 355 committee.
I'd like to see it go back to a trust.
So that'd be, if the user group wanted to do that, they just all the users that.
Well, I know they had a vote, sorry, 3 years to me, at the AGM, didn't they, Andrew? And to go back to a trust, I think the motion that was voted upon, I think it was 6-1 to go back to a trust.
Yeah, there's no issue that they want to do that. Like, so if council allows it, isn't it?
Can I suggest that we take the minutes and the recommendation of that meeting and put a council report together and consider it at a future meeting?
Happy with that, council? Now, anything else in those minutes?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Last page 31, the members of the Internal Financial Committee will be nominated at the councillor workshop. Presumably that was yesterday, the 27th, and provided at the ensuing ordinary meeting. Did that happen?
Well, we spoke about that. We think we've already got a committee. Yeah. We need that. Yeah, I don't know where that is. This has a,
I'm not going page by page, I'm going to the ones that I've got little stick-it notes
oh
on.
no,
the
but this is the
questions.
last minute. These minutes of the last meeting.
That's it, right?
Oh, right.
So you've jumped in a bit.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Minutes of the last.
Forgive
Just any
me,
more
forgive
questions on
me,
the,
team. My apologies.
any questions on the minutes, last meeting? Move, they accept the move, councillor. Hey?
No, I can't.
Dennis Palmer, moved councillor Palmer, seconded Charlie Sheen. Councillor Sheen. Just saying if you're alert. Righto, the mayoral minutes, I think I'm pretty well covered there. He's all right. I did attend that Cooter recreation meeting.
I'll move those, Mr. Mayor, if you like.
Move councillor.
Sorry. Late notice.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is the, for some reason these weren't included, but 16th to 17th of May, on your behalf, I attended the New South Wales Office of Small Business Commissioner, Small Business Friendly Council's inaugural conference.
Yeah.
And at that conference, on your behalf,
I think they're late report. I mean, this.
but isn't it a mayoral minute?
Yeah, well, I'll do it at the end of. Yeah, sorry, I'll do it in a minute. Yeah, before I move it. I'll do it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Firstly, I was going to like to congratulate Glenn McAteer, our manager of renewal services. Glenn, oh, here it is. It's moved. Glenn is now. I had the sheet that I think is the president of the USU. Yeah. So we'd really like to congratulate you, Glenn. You've always been involved there with the USU, and congratulate you on and I think it just shows that our council, you know, they're keen to be involved with the union, and it's great that we've got a representative as president. So I'd really like to thank you for putting your hand up, and congratulations on being selected. So thank you. Now, Lee, Councillor Bowden, she attended the New South Wales Office of Small Business Commissioner, Office of Small Business Commissioner for the Small Business Friendly Council's inaugural conference. And on behalf of Council, Councillor Bowden received a plaque celebrating the Cootamundra-Gundagai Regional Council as an easy to do business partner. And the plaque was presented by the Honourable Victor Dominello, MP, Minister for Customer Services, with the Honourable Damien Hope, MLC, have I said that up, Minister of Finance and Small Business. So that is the award, Lee, and
That's
we
the award.
congratulate you on representing us at the conference, and thank you very much for being that
Thank you.
award back.
And I just want to say too that the Small Business Commissioner said that Cootamundra-Gundagai was one of the first councils to sign up, and that was Miriam's work back in 2014. So congratulations to Miriam.
That's excellent. Well done. Well done. Now, would someone like to move the information the mailman's received a note of move to Councillor Nicholson, second to Councillor Graham. All in favour? Now I'll hand you over to the General Manager report. We got one there.
So there's another mayoral minute there, Mr. Mayor, item 6.2, and it's a recommendation around the emergency services levy increase, which has been imposted onto council.
Right, that's sorry. Yeah, go on, would you like to speak on?
Well, council's been subjected to a 23% increase, an increase from $505,000 a year for its levy contribution for emergency services, which is $96,000 more than last year's increase. And the recommendation, I guess, outlines our position and how we might like to move forward and obtain some state government support in regard to the impacts that creates on us and how we might like to have that reduced, etc. And take action against such a significant impost on our budget.
It amazes me how we weren't involved in any of the negotiations to talk about this prior to Christmas, and it didn't come out till after the election. But of 160 million, we got to suffer. Insurances suffer 80%. We suffer 14%. The state government 6%. For someone that's, if we got to suffer 14% and they're only suffering 6%, why shouldn't we have been involved in the initial talks, which I think was wrong. I have had comment from someone that one of the local members, not in our area, away from here, who has a ministerial, is advising his councils not to pay. But Linda Scott, as you know, she's fighting our local government. New South Wales, they're fighting to have the state government, which it says in there, pay it all this year, and then we can talk between now and next year. But it's a great burden to get on your budget, once it's another 95,000. But it's one of those things that put on us that we've got to try and fight against.
Just through the chair, that at the last summit meeting with our state representative, this was a very vocal and very robust discussion regarding every council has increases in excess of 23 to 25%. So we're not the Lone Ranger. And the local member was lately made very aware of our decisions because our draft budgets were already out on display. And this is not represented. And as the Mayor said, we were not at all ever once involved in the discussions leading up to this. So the state member is well and truly aware and is going to pursue it for us.
Yeah, I spoke to him on Saturday night. We talked to her when he was there, and she fully can understand our concerns. How it was dumped on us, so she's certainly going to fight for us and push for us too.
No, through the chair, my understanding was that 75% was funded by insurance premiums, 12.5 by local government, 12.5 by state government. That's a bit different to what you just said.
It's 80, 14, 6.
Right. So this has got nothing to do with the rural fire service at all.
No, this is the emergency levies. It's to do with claims to do with mainly fire services.
Because the rural fire service is funded that way.
Yeah, no, this is how they put it. This is 160
Yeah,
million.
I know, but I mean, so are we going to get another increased hit from the rural fire service also?
Oh, well, I don't know. I suppose that'll be interesting to see, yeah.
This increase includes the rural fire service. There's two other components which I'd have to check for you, but RFS is in that one.
This is the RFS section of this claim. Like this, the 160 million that we're paying 14% on was 19 million up this year. Then goes to that next 4 years, but it's been split.
Yeah, I'll stand corrected, Mr. Mayor, but I mean, when they used to come and explain the whole rural fire service and the funding to us at Gundagai Council previously, they said it was 75% insurance premiums and 12.5% state and local.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now we've got to afford it 80, 14, 6. I think we need to ask questions.
This is basically like a one-offer. A one-off thing, and that's how they're splitting it up. They're not doing the 12.5, 75. They're doing insurance is paying 80, we're paying 14, and like state government's paying 6. That's how it is. Yeah.
So then why shouldn't we be rejecting this?
Why should we be rejecting?
No, why shouldn't we be objecting
Yeah.
about the breakup? Because if insurance companies are prepared to go from 75 to 80%, well then I would have thought logically it should be 10% and 10%. Consistent with what we previously used to pay.
Yeah. as I said, they're this year, our local government, our association is fighting that we don't pay anything this year, and then negotiate the fees from then on, prior to June next year.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take that additional comment on board in my negotiations with them and fight for that change in split.
This will be, I'm pretty sure it's on the agenda for Friday's meeting, country mayors in Sydney, so we can certainly bring it up there. It's definitely on the agenda.
Well, I just think you've got to be consistent with these things.
Yeah. As I said, it's a one-offer. They might say, oh, we just changed it for this one, but it's wrong. Are we paying over double what the state is?
And for years, we've
33%.
been battling to try and get extra fags money because of the terrain and this and that we deal with, and they don't even take that into account. So, yeah.
Every council's been hit with it. That's on city end. I think one of the central cases 500,000. 550,000. So you got
Through the chair, if the general manager will accept Councillor Graham's addition, I'll move the recommendation.
Yeah, would you want to add it to these recommendations?
Yep.
You'll add that?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Move those recommendations. Move Councillor Palmer, second Councillor Phillips. All in favour?
Item 8.1 is resolutions that came out of a council workshop. Council is required to place its long-term financial plan, budgets, revenue policies, operational plans on public exhibition for 28 days in accordance with the Local Government Act requirements. As such, council resolved that at the council workshop held on the 13th of May, and those documents have subsequently been placed on public exhibition, ready for any community feedback and appropriate changes following, which then can be considered at the June council meeting. So this recommendation is about endorsing the actions that we took at the council workshop.
I'd encourage the community to go through it, and certainly if there's any issues they've got, please make a submission.
Further to that first recommendation, we've got a second recommendation that we've recognised that our budget position leaves us in a position where we're probably not financially sustainable long term unless we have a good hard review of our existing long-term financial plan, and council at the workshop further endorsed to task the general manager to put a finance committee together and work pretty hard over the next 6 months to look at some substantial changes to our business practices to see if we can address the long-term financial plan and turn it around. So that's the second part of the recommendation.
And as we said, councillor, I think we've already formed a committee. It was Councillor Lamb and Councillor Brown.
Councillor Graham and Councillor
Phillips.
Yeah, that's right. My only question, Mr. Mayor, is that we need to be careful how we word that, because the council workshop's technically not a meeting, so we can't have a resolution, but it was general consensus that the wording around it is that we can't actually make decisions in a workshop, but perhaps it was worded, general consensus was to expedite the budget. We send it out to and then we deal with it. And we'd already done the finance committee. That's my understanding anyway. Happy to be corrected.
So you mean the second?
Well, just be mindful that when we talk about things at a council workshop, we can have a consensus view that we can get that report out for public comment, but we can't actually vote on it.
Yeah.
So it's just the wording was a bit.
Yeah, you're voting on it now.
Yeah.
So the resolution that you passed tonight endorses those actions, which allowed us to just put it out on
Yeah, happy with
exhibition at a suitable time frame.
Mr Mayor, I just have a question. Would no other councils interested in being on that internal finance committee?
We only wanted the two that we had before, wasn't David? Yeah.
But it was a couple of months ago that we talked about that.
Yeah.
Was it? Okay.
And I know Councillor Graham and I, there was a workshop that both Councillor Graham and I were both unavailable to go. And so the next time when it comes up, we'll go. Is that correct, Councillor Graham?
All right, someone would like to move that recommendation? Move Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor Kelly, all in favour?
Item 8.1.2 is financial assistance grant correspondence. The correspondence in relation to a resolution made at the last council meeting, we put into action and sent correspondence to the list of ministers listed in your report. And to date, we've had a few responses, and they're presented there for you.
Mary Ann, would you say there was someone extra too? Was it John Barrow and Vera Pickling for this one? Oh, right.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say congratulations. It's a very good letter. So thank you for following that up with that resolution. And that there's the one in the council papers is from Scott Mashford, who says, that it's caretaker government, so there's nothing can be done now. I think that's an opportunity to write another letter and say, okay, you're in, now what are you going to do? In the beautiful tones that you wrote the last letter.
In your late report correspondence at the back, you'll also see some replies from Deputy Premier John Barilaro, the Premier Gladys Berejiklian, Senator Bridget McKenzie. So you can see that, well, the responses are quite positive. So I think we've made them aware of the situation. And our feelings on improving the financial assistance grant percentages in particular, and the amount to increase. So let's trust that they take that on board and make the changes that they need to through legislation.
Could I, through the chair, could I, in Bridget McKenzie's letter, the second last paragraph, we are always interested in hearing views of council as to this essential support that can be delivered more effectively and appreciate valuable information provided. I think there's an opportunity there to potentially line up a meeting with her and present our case.
Through the mayor, I had the opportunity to speak twice in the last few weeks with Michael McCormick, and I raised this issue with him on both occasions, and I can assure you he's well and truly over it and understands the disparity between metropolitan councils, where they can raise like 30 million in Sydney just with parking fines, and we're struggling to balance a budget here and rely solely on fags, and he is well and truly covering it. And I think that's the crack in the door. We just keep working on him there, on this area. We'll just keep reminding him.
Through the chair, if I may, Mr Mayor, and the Deputy Premier's letter, please find enclosed a copy of the correspondence to the Commonwealth Government and the response I received. If you seek further information, I encourage you to contact Senator McKenzie's office. Actually, we're operating on his suggestion. Maybe there's another letter or a contact there. I'm not hopeful, but I can dream. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is the format is
Happy to produce some additional correspondence to take care of those views of the councillors.
Yeah. Whether we succeed in the long run, we got to try. No, we got it. So to add to that recommendation, we'll follow up the correspondence back to appropriate people.
So you just want to add to that recommendation that further correspondence be sent to those particular ministers as a follow-up?
Thank you.
That recommendation to Councillor Graham, second to Councillor Bowden, all in favour?
Item 8.1.3 is the drought declaration for Cootamundra-Gundagai Regional Council. This has come about because the declaration of the drought areas precludes certain areas of our local government area from being drought declared, and hence doesn't open up the opportunity for significant funding that other local government areas are being entitled to under the same sort of circumstances. So the report outlines where we sit at the moment, and it is recommending that we write to the Honourable Michael McCormack and seek consideration for our complete area to be drought declared.
I certainly consider it won't be a problem. No issue to do it.
Coolamundra Council went through a very similar process just recently and wrote, and their area was declared, and that's opened up a round of funding opportunities for them. So I think we would be amiss if we didn't take the same type of action.
Councillor Shane, do you like to move that way? Move Councillor Shane. So, second to Councillor Stewart, all in favour?
Item 8.1.4 is the information bulletin with various correspondence that you might like to note, and if you've got any comment, happy to hear so.
Moves. Councillor Kelly, second to Councillor Palmer, all in favour?
We're on page 59. Item 8.1.5 is Cootamundra Tourism Action Committee 355 committee meeting minutes. And there's a recommendation that the report be received and noted, and council consider recommendations included within the report.
Mr Mayor, excuse me, I have to leave. This is a non-pecuniary interest because I'm a member of the management committee of the Arts Centre.
I'm going to do that, yeah. Well, the first one is on page 63. On right.
Sharon, can I ask you to come up to the table and be available to answer a question?
This is
one of the recommendations in the TAC meeting minutes was that the Cootamundra Tourism Action Group recommends that council supports the Arts Centre Cootamundra Stage Master Plan concept so that TAC can begin the contained activity, including sourcing appropriate funds required from current grant programs. You might recall that is not the chairman. We were addressed at the last forum of the council meeting by Isabel Scott in regard to the master plan. May I suggest that that's probably not an appropriate recommendation because councillors haven't been presented with the master plan to endorse, and I think Sharon has probably an appropriate recommendation that might appease both parties.
Yeah, could I just remind council that is a concept plan at this stage. It isn't a hard and fast plan, it's purely a concept plan. And in further to that recommendation, I would like to make the comment that we could preface the recommendation with something on the lines that council supports the strategic approach of the Arts Centre within the confines of the site. However, activities outside the site need to be considered in the wider community context
and in line with the council strategic planning document. Something on that line would suffice, I think.
That's where we're going to. We need an appropriate recommendation. I don't think we can adopt their current recommendation. So
That's the way I'd move that we'd accept the recommendation, because there are a lot of things in that conceptual plan that would cross over with local traffic regulations and all sorts of things. But by taking it on board that way, that we support within the site, within the confines of the site, but then the consideration of the activities outside with a wider strategic plan.
Sharon, do you think that's appropriate? Yep. Any other comment on that? Pardon? Any other comment? Yeah. You've heard that, no comments. Move Councillor Shane. Second to Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? Carried. I can't see a second recommendation, is there?
the second recommendation says that council considers the committee's recommendation, and I think Councillor Sheen's recommendation there is an appropriate one for you to endorse.
Oh, no, this will be the second one there, I don't think.
We're up to item 8.1.6 is the Muddamar Hall Management 355 Committee meeting minutes, and there's a recommendation that the minutes be received and noted.
Just one little item whilst we're on the Muddamar Hall Management Committee. There's been concern about the boundary or the perception of the boundary between the hall and the fire shed. And I think to resolve that possibly would just need some consultation between the hall committee, the RFS, which would be Bruce McGregor, and a staff member should be able to resolve that without going into any great detail. So it's just
Happy to take that on board and get that organised.
Yeah, who made that recommendation? Move Councillor Shane, second to Councillor Bowden. All in favour? Elwood Hall.
Item 8.1.7 is Stock and Bingham's Elwood Hall, 355 committee meeting minutes, membership and hire fees. So there's a recommendation there that the report be received and noted, and that the membership of the Elwood Hall Committee as detailed in the report be endorsed, and that the scheduled hall hire charges attached to the report be endorsed for inclusion in our fees and charges.
Just on that, there might be a report later, is there, Andrew, about the issues with the water and the pub and that?
Yeah, so basically the water issue, the time that we went and inspected, it was dry as, and unfortunately there's no pipe work or anything that sort of indicates that there could be a major problem there. So we're just watching that one closely. In relation to the fencing issue, a letter is it is to be sent to the neighbour, and that there is already survey work being completed on the site, so we have a clear boundary line that we can work with now.
All right, thank you. No other questions? We've got the recommendation. Move Councillor Stewart, second to Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? Carried.
Item 8.1.8 is the Muddamar Creek Regeneration Group 355 committee meeting minutes, and the recommendation there is that the report be received and noted.
Move Councillor Shane, second to Councillor Phillips. All in favour? Carried.
Item 8.1.9 is Cootamundra Development Corporation, request for sponsorship for the Cootamundra Wattle Time Fair, and there's a recommendation that council consider sponsorship for the fair by way of provision of traffic control in lieu of $350 sponsorship request subsequent to approval by the local area traffic committee at its June meeting.
What was the cost of the traffic control? Last year, I think they had trucks, didn't they? Remember?
Through the chair, we wouldn't need trucks and that for this event. Last year we deemed that we could get away with just general traffic control. We did a risk assessment on it and we could get away with possibly $500, I suppose, the traffic control would cost if it's set up during work hours. One possibility is in the past the school Walk Week parade has been held the day before, but that's subject to confirmation yet.
So last year, did I sort of read like we given 350 buses traffic control? That's correct. You know, I can see here somewhere. Oh no, it's on the agenda. I got no issue. Yeah, move council.
Mr. Mayor, just before we do, presumably council as an in-kind sponsor, although there's no financial sponsorship as such, council would still get the benefits of a financial sponsor listed on page 88.
Move councillor Phillips, second councillor Nicholson, all in favour?
Item 8.1.10 is a council meeting action report, and there's a recommendation that the report be received and noted.
Any questions on the report?
Through the chair, if I may, just on the waste collection services. The old Gundagai Council had a plan when they closed the landfill tips to open the transfer stations, and I believe one was tagged for Adjumbilly. And I'm still copying requests about that transfer station, and I'd like to know if that is considered in the waste management plan to put in a transfer station at Adjumbilly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've also spoken to a community member from Adjumbilly in regards to this issue. I've investigated the history which was indicated by that resident. I've also spoken to our consultant and also reviewed the current status of the strategic plan, and it will be incorporated. And I actually support the process that does preserve a transfer station or some sort of waste management opportunity out there. So it will be incorporated and it'll be included as part of the financial plan as well.
So the cost of that and the cost of collection could increase overall for the rural ratepayer.
It needs to be a decision made by council in context of what the financial impact is on council. The former council made a decision not to proceed with the site up there because of the additional cost and impost on the rural rate base. So there was a decision made not to proceed with a transfer station at Adjumbilly, and those people from Adjumbilly were welcome to use the Coolac site, and that was a financial decision made by the council at the time. In light of the comments that you're going to consider it through the review, then it can come back to council for a decision later on.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Page 91, the design for the Turners Lane Industrial Subdivision awarded to MJM, designs expected December 18. Do we have those designs?
Last I knew that detailed designs were prepared and Bill Moore was reviewing the final detailed designs. That's I'll have to take the question on notice and come back to you with something accurate.
Isn't that where we always put into funding for it? This is Turners Lane.
Yeah. We've applied for funding. It was based on our concept design and concept estimates as part of the grant application, and subsequently we moved to detailed design, and those detailed designs should be complete now, and we should be advancing into the construction phase based on the deadlines that we've got in front of us for that particular site.
Well, we, just on that then, we don't get the funding, we are going to proceed.
Council allocated in its budget something in the order of about $800,000 towards the servicing of that block, and we've got obligations to service that block, and that $800,000 it can be utilised to service those blocks, so, and open it up for sale for future lots.
But 800,000 won't put on all the services.
I might take the question on notice, Mr. Mayor. The grant application was looking at all the costs associated with the site, including removal of the existing high voltage power lines to a new alignment and that sort of thing. We certainly don't, within our $800,000 council budget allocation, have the money to do the full scope of works. So we're kind of reliant on the grant to do the whole lot, and we were successful to get through to the second stage of the grant application process, and that's where it sits at the moment. But given the questions and the need for information, we might put a detailed report back to the next council meeting on the status.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Sorry. Page 96, the ALWA report. The recommendation was to the council prepare a report on the implications of implementing the 10 days paid domestic violence leave. And the thing is to be included in council's leave policy. But what were the implications of including a domestic violence leave?
So we're looking at our leave policies at the moment. Essentially, people have existing leave entitlements like sick leave and that sort of thing. Essentially, whether it be for sick leave or domestic violence and that sort of thing, they can utilise their existing leave balances, which council has in its reserves. So the financial impact, I think, will be minimal, but we're still doing the analysis on it and including that within draft policies.
Does that mean that the DV leave would have to come out of the sick leave? Is there no provision then, if you're terribly sick as well as having experienced domestic violence, you get an additional 10 days?
So the local government award allows the general manager to provide leave without pay and all sorts of other options to help people out in exceptional circumstances, but we haven't looked at the details yet of how we might incorporate your resolution within our existing policies, but we're working on it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry, please. Just in your the action report, like you look at the one on page 93, it's the Gundagai Large Scale Adventure Park. That's been kicking around on this document for over 12 months now. Detailed design proposed, accepted and progressing. We've got that many different projects happening around the place. Where are some of these things up to?
That one, that could be actually changed. It's basically processed and ready for construction, or we wait for all the Andrew can back it up, and David and Penny, all the...
Maybe we should take it off this list and just leave it in the projects list, but that particular project has now proceeded to procurement, so they're actually purchasing.
I think what we need...
Same as Jubilee.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's $500,000 to be spent at Jubilee Park, $400,000 for a water park at the Cooter Pool. We need to give some people some kind of timeline of when some of these things are happening. Like, the comment was passed to me the other day about the Fisher Park lights upgrade. They're taking bets that it's never going to happen. Like, all these things have been kicking around for years. We need some kind of a pretty close timeline of when these things are going to happen.
Yeah. That adventure park, I think it was it round one or round two of Tonga Country Communities? This is the one here and over there. But we were hoping about mid to late November, but because of the hold up of the product, it'll be late December now, I think, Andrew.
I understand there's a lot of
but it can probably be gone off.
Yeah, but there's a lot of planning and works to be done of designs and things like that. But we need to be doing a better job of informing our residents of where we're up to with some of these projects.
And that probably could be put out a bit more in the community newsletter than other things that we have in it.
Take on board your comment that we could get appropriate meter into the community. We do have our project spreadsheet, and we have had councillor workshops on the status of projects and that sort of thing, so to inform the councillors so they know where it's up to. But in particular, if we can get some more media releases out there in terms of where some of the significant projects are heading, happy to do so.
Even if, like, the staff do a great job on our newsletter, there's no denying that. But even if once every couple of months we just list all our grant funds that are going at the moment and where they're up to, just so people know actually how many things are happening in the whole region. There's a lot of the comments past that there's nothing happening kind of thing. People don't realise how much is actually going on, because we do a very poor job sometimes of explaining to people how much is actually going on in the community.
Yeah, something like this action report probably could be flicked around to every manager that's concerned, 2 weeks or week and a half before the meeting, just say, can you comment on, and do you want to change the status of this report or put some more information on that, and then get it back to Mary Ann to be the go if we can.
Like, I'm not having it up with staff. They can only put in the information that's provided to them. I just think that we need to look at the information we give to the staff. I think sometimes we could do a lot better job informing our residents, that's all.
Take on board those comments.
Through the chair. Just on note there that the safety audit on the rail overpass is completed. Is there any implication with that we can source funding for some of that roadworks up there, or even planning for the alternate pedestrian access to the cemetery?
We'll look into that and prepare a report for the next meeting. I can't remember what the detail was in terms of width and impacts on the existing structure, but we probably haven't taken that to the next level and then started to look at opportunities.
So that sort of, we can access RMS with that being the Olympic Highway?
Yeah, so whenever RMS opportunities for funding, like freight productivity grants and things like that, that'll be the source of reference document to support our case, but we certainly haven't progressed it to that level as yet.
Yeah, through the chair. I did raise it with the recent RMS meeting we had, our monthly meeting regarding works, and said that we had a draft report, and they were interested in seeing a copy of that. So all they'll do now is give them a copy and move on from there.
We're up to 95, 395, with the road there. Is that still going on, or?
At the present time, we sort of got it in right. It just depends if something happens on the other side of the road, I think, isn't it? If we, like I don't know, how's it working? That's what we've got to set up.
So the existing drawings that were prepared for that particular site included a service road over the other side. Council only built at this stage the roadworks associated with opening Southwest Fuels and did that component of it. I think we need, as a council, to come back and consider what the rest of the project would entail, and how we might be able to fund that. We've talked about at a workshop level, we've talked about maybe developer contribution plans, so that the cost of all the infrastructure that allows development to thrive in there is funded from development charges as it comes through. So there's a funding source available. We really need to work that up as a council.
I think that would probably come off, like that showground sign. I think you got that pretty well under organised, Andrew. And as you said there, the Elwood Hall, that's sort of pretty well. Any other questions? Would someone like to move that report to accept it? Move Councillor Stewart, second to Councillor Bowden. All in favour? Carried.
Item 8.1.11 on page 98 is a monthly major projects program report. The recommendation there is that the project report be received and noted, and recommended changes to the project budget as listed be adopted.
Any questions? Make sure that report a bit later. See what he's going up down here, that shed for the pony club. Oh, geez, it's a big shed. Oh, I don't know how they got it for the money. Hey? Jeez, they must have. I'd like to have a full hay would be worth a bit. Oh, it's 62, yeah, 70, we stepped it the other day, 72 by 40 something.
And Mr. Mayor, worthy to note that it's by a local contractor as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's a massive shed. Yeah. Justin. Actually, while we're on that, the questioning event at the weekend went off extremely well, and Pip and I went down and caught up with the, she's only since last August been chairman of Question Australia, Lucy Warhurst. She's been pretty prominent in other sporting things over the time, but she was really wrapped in the setup down here and just a community girl, and she was, and she's been very successful in other businesses and that she's run, so she was really, really happy with it. Honestly, I would like to move the council send a vote of thanks to Jim Scobie and his team. You should see one of the logs. There's a log down there. They dragged this big tree. It was in the Gundagai paper, and they got to make a carve. He's carved the two go in. That's going up this way, and a dog and a tucker box on this end, and in the middle, he's cut it. And if you get the eastern side of it, and you look, you've got the old bridge carved in where they jump over, and you have the old bridge in the background. It's unbelievable. But unbelievable log. Like, it's something that'll just they'll retain there. But I think if we could send them a letter, just to organise them. Yeah. 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 Yes. Councillor Phillips, second to Councillor Palmer, all in favour. While on that, how did the mufflers or what do they call them at the airport this week? Was it? Same story, whoever organised that, we should send them a letter. I know Pam was very, very busy all that week. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment on that. In the Cootamundra Tourism Action Group minutes, the Tourism Action Group committee have committed to write a thank you letter to any event that happens, to the organisers of any event that happens in Cootamundra. So maybe the GTAC could do the same. Yeah.
Great.
Just on that event, through the chair, I was up there with the Lions Club, and we do cater quite a few of those events through the year, and they are growing with popularity within their organisation. But like, unfortunately, they're not spectator events; they're events for their club, and by not having, let's say, open to the public, they're able to do it without all the insurance costs and burden that comes with a big public show on motor vehicles and motorsport. So that they're looking at even increasing the use of that facility because it suits their event and it doesn't interfere with residents or community and that. So it's a great boon to the town. It fills up the motels, all the coffee shops and cafes are busy. It's a really good thing. It's a venue that we can actually hopefully watch it grow a bit. Yeah.
Also, on the back of that, Councillor Sheen, the Cooter RFS Brigade do the fire protection for their 3 or 4 events every year, and they give quite a sizable donation to us, which enables us to buy a lot of things through our brigade too. So that's a lot of wood we had to cut otherwise.
Item 8.2.1 is the December quarterly budget review statement. There's a recommendation there. Oh, sorry, read the wrong one. The March 2019 quarterly budget review statement be accepted and the budget variations listed in the attached report be adopted. Page 105.
Yeah, through the chair, should it say March quarterly budget? Says December up the top.
Yeah, the recommendation says March. Yeah.
Just through the chair, just a couple of comments if I could. On page 109, just about possible future change, it says unexpected employee costs of 621,000 have been incurred. Could I ask somebody to explain just where or what that represents?
So they're a combination of 203,000 in back pay that resulted from the alignment of the two salary systems. So I guess in bringing everyone onto the same system, the people that had been disadvantaged had to be back paid to the. And the original budget included $418,000 worth of savings from a planned restructure that was discussed at a workshop in June last year. Those changes were never implemented.
That's in Alan's time. Alan was looking to do a restructure, and that never eventuated.
The savings were never made. So, yeah. I could go back to the list from the workshop and provide it at a future. Was in June last year.
I know the comment. He always made the comment. We'd have less staff in 2019. There was always a comment. There, I don't. There was any. Other than that, I don't think we're ever doing any specifics.
Can I suggest it be for a workshop, just with the sensitive information?
Yep. Just while I'm going, if we just continue two more, on page 119.
That's the next report. Sorry.
Oh, it's the next report, is it? Otherwise, jump. Yeah, okay, I'll sit back. Thank you. We'll address it.
Anything else on the quarterly report?
Just through the chair, it's nice to see the income from waste science. It's a nice boost to the council's funding.
On 114, that's one. Agree that the budget workshop to allocate $1 million completely.
That's the intention with this report, that I guess if you wanted to reject that, we could take it out of what was adopted here.
That's an issue.
Yeah, so the majority of the expenditure has already occurred, and at a workshop it was agreed that. But
I'll just ask that. Should it not come to a council meeting where we actually have a formal yes, do it, so it's actually documented rather than talking about something that's happened at a workshop again?
So you're voting on it now. So this is a
No,
council
these are variations, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a variation that's put up as a draft in front of you, and now you've got the obligation.
But doesn't this mean the money's already been spent?
No. So
this is the March. I'm looking at March quarterly.
Yeah. So there was no budget allocated for the amount of money above the $1.4 million on the admin building.
spent. We allocated 1.4 million, is correctly.
Yep.
Right, to the admin out of our merger funds. So that's ongoing as to where we're going to go there. Then all of a sudden, we had $1 million supposedly appeared for this civic centre that we're still kind of trying to work out. Well, have we spent $1 million? Where's the money been spent? Da, 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 da. So if your comment is right, Tim, that the money has already been spent, where has it been allocated to as a cost centre? Because you're bringing forward here a budget variation to bring in to say that, yes, councillors now agree that we're going to spend $1 million on the civic centre, which I don't think any of us have agreed to. That's my understanding.
Well, that's 700. We haven't, we didn't go to that.
The 700 is part of the $1 million. And my question is, if the money has been spent, well, I would have thought it's in these figures somewhere, right? Then what we're looking for now is a recommendation to say we all agree that we've agreed that we can spend $1 million on the civic centre. Well, I for one do not agree with it.
It was the subject of a workshop here where discussion was had about how much it was going to cost to complete that facility. I can't remember the exact figures, but the estimate at that stage was that it was 250, and my understanding of the outcome was that we were just going to say allocate $1 million to it. I'm happy to take out if it's voted down tonight, I can take that out and we can discuss it at a future workshop. But that's where that figure's come from.
Yeah, no, I remember at the workshop, I said, we've got a hole in the middle of the civic centre that we've got to do something with. And I asked Andrew, I said, and don't tell us the $250,000 job, just how much to put it back into place. And I think you said 110, yeah, 110,000.
I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that although it says $700,000, that nowhere near that amount was actually spent in the town hall. It's been other money's been contributed to that amount. So it might say 700,000 for the town hall. We look at that figure and go, wow, where is it? In actual fact, that's nowhere near the accurate figure that was actually spent in the town hall.
But isn't that some of the questions that you've been asking for some time as to what exactly have we spent on the town hall? And it can't be that hard to work out. You've asked the question. So go through the costs that have been paid to date and say, well, this is what was spent on the town hall.
I might get Tim to, I'll just get Tim to give the answer he gave me yesterday, because I'm the main one that's been pushing for this as well, as you know, David. And unfortunately, it's not as cut and dried as I would have liked to have thought, but we might just get Tim to explain what he said to us yesterday about the date-wise.
So because there was never a budget approved for the town hall, it was found that all the expenses there had been coded to the admin building. In the initial stages of looking into this, we worked on the assumption that the work on the admin building had been completed around July, and everything from August on was town hall works. So any reports that had come out had been based on that assumption. It's in having sort of pursued that a bit more with questions from councillors, the project staff are telling us that it's not that simple, that there are transactions that span that date that we can't categorise just that simply. So they're going to need to do a bit of work to identify where we're going to have to separate those costs from an accounting point of view anyway. So they're going to have to do a bit of work to let us know how we do that.
I'll give you an example, Councillor Graham. There was the bill for, I think it was about $13,500 for the main front door at the admin building. Because it came in after October, it went straight to the town hall costs.
Surely our policy is that when we get an invoice, that it's got to be written on there what the invoice is for. I know in my business, I don't pay. If you don't tell me what you want me money for, you're not getting it.
Why was it such that a general decision was made that we just code the expenses to the admin building when it was another project? Why wasn't another cost center created immediately? Work started there. I just don't get it. I'm sorry.
That's absolutely how we would, in my department, how we would run things.
I think it was,
But I mean, it's happened here. You know, go back to the problem we had in the plant fund last year. It's exactly the same as the plant fund. We were $2 million short in plant fund last year because things weren't allocated correctly to the jobs. So our plant fund came up $2 million short.
I'd bet pound to peanuts there was a massive overspend in the admin building, and that's where the costs have been transferred to make it not look as bad as the overspend in that area. That's what I'd guess it would do.
Councillor Kelly, that may be so, but at the end of the day, you know, this is the second time major projects have happened where we haven't got our cost centres right. We can't keep doing this.
it'll be interesting what the instructions were on the day. That's all I want to say. It'll be interesting. Well, I'm not going to blame any present staff, but it'll be interesting what the instructions that were given on the day.
So just getting back to this budget variation, so this is like an accounting thing to pull that into line for your books, for your quarterly budget, that million.
Yeah, that's right. Now, we included it as a likely variation for the September quarterly budget review because we didn't know the exact figures. Now that we've got a bit more certainty about that, we've included it in the body of the statement. And so, yes, that's a tick in the budget box, yeah.
And that is including that rectification to remedial work to finish off that civic centre.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Like, we can't change the numbers along the paper. We need to make the recommendation, but this is discussion. We need, I know for me, when I always express concern about the money we spend.
But we can't change those numbers that are in the quarterly budget review. We can't suddenly say, oh no, we're not going to do that because we need to. So I'll move the recommendation.
Through the chair, I'd just like to say that I cannot see how we cannot go through the total expenditure on both those projects, the admin and the hall, and allocate them out. Now, in some cases, you may have to make assumptions, but I would have thought in 90% of the cases, you should be able to work out whether it related to the hall or whether it related to the admin building. And I think that schedule needs to be done and put in front of us.
That certainly needs to happen because we're going to need to provide that information for when our financial statements are audited. We'll have to have accurate figures in our taken up for each of those assets. So from my point of view, it certainly needs to happen, but it's not something that I can do because I haven't had first-hand dealings with the project.
So happy to allocate staff who are associated with that project to do the best that they can to split those costs out.
Happy with that, Councillor Graham, if we do that? Yeah. So do you want that in to the recommendation? Oh, those that want that in the recommendation. No, got to be done. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Any other questions on that quarterly budget? On where we are. I'd like to move the recommendations there. Yeah, move Councillor Farmer, second to Councillor Baden, all in favour. Phil, sorry. Just checking on the ball.
Item 8.2.2 is a monthly finance report for April 2019 to be received and noted. Oh, for March, sorry, April's up.
April. If I could, through the chair, sorry.
Page 118.
Correct.
Recommendation of the tax monthly finance report for March 2019 be repeated notice.
Should be April, if you could adjust that in your resolution.
Through the chair, if I could, just on page 119, it touches on our plant income. It's a wee bit disappointing and frustrating. Both Gundagai and Cootamundra have both had very robust plant replacement funds programs. But here we are, nearly 2 years later, we still haven't got it right according to this. So I'm just wondering, what is the issue? Why can't we get this, the allocations right? I thought we worked on this some 2 or 3 months ago.
Councillor Palmer, I think where we got behind this year was in the first 4 months when we were questioning it at the end of last year. And without speaking too nastily about previous general manager, nothing really happened. And all of a sudden, Mr. Malloy and Jim Swan brought it to our attention in November. And we started to move forward. So it's starting to catch up, but we lost that first 4 months.
Yeah, every factor robust fund.
Yeah. Then on page 120, the thing that hits you fair and square in the middle of the forehead is wages budget to be corrected.
Yeah, what's that?
Can I just have a explanation for that, please?
Been going on for 4 months, 5 months.
The variance is because that's where the project management staff are coded to. So their costs will come out of merger money, but they have to be coded somewhere in the general ledger. So that's where they appear.
Is there some way that maybe you can know what that number is?
Councillor Phillips, if you go back to our discussions last year when we were trying to fix the budget, all of a sudden, from where we were to what happened, all of a sudden we improved by about $2 million. And the general manager said that, this is how we'll work on it, right? So effectively, that number there is where that number's been allocated to. It's not exactly, but I've followed it through and been tracking it, and that's where it's got allocated to. And it's from a decision made, and then history is now showing that we're nowhere near that figure. We're up where we originally budgeted on, or a bit bigger.
Just one point on that business unit summary. It's something we would like to improve on. With the new structure being in place at the moment, it's hard to align last year's budget with this year's actuals, and I guess we're only a couple of months into the new structure, so with a busy time with budgets and everything else, we haven't been able to expand on that yet, but that's in the pipeline.
Did you get a mover and second for that? Did I miss something?
No, I don't know if there's any more questions.
No, sorry.
Someone like to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Phillips, second Councillor Bowden, all in favour?
Item 8.3.1 is Cootamundra Development Corporation Memorandum of Understanding. There's a recommendation there that council negotiate a memorandum of understanding with the CDC covering the 2019-20 period. And the memorandum of understanding is to include agreed activities outcomes, a program for monitoring performance, communication requirements, and the representation requirements at relevant council committee meetings.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. I presume that the the immediate document before the memorandum is an up-to-date document, because it's talking about Cootamundra-Gundagai, not just Cootamundra. But it talks about meetings with the general manager and the staff of the council, with the CEO of CDC. And I know that back when Cootamundra, when the CDC was first up and running, there was two councillors were sitting on the CDC board, but I don't see that anywhere in this new outline. I just wondered, it's in the recommendation.
Representation requirements. Oh, no, that's
No. Yeah, that's right. So I just wondered if we still want councillors at the CDC as represented on the CDC as they are on 355 committees.
Through the chair.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm on the board down there.
Yep.
And I represent council, and I have done for numerous years.
So it needs to be added.
I'm happy to hear you. What's just while we're on it, what's the membership? What's the cost of business to be a member?
It has been. Sorry. Oh, it does, but they are this year they are reducing the membership in order to get more on board to obtain it. It was a little bit pricey for different ones, but a lot of them that wanted to join, they've come along and said, if you drop the prices, we might quite well become a member. So, yeah.
So at the present time, it's what, 200, 300?
I'm not sure on the total figure, but yeah, not at present, no.
And then they, like I was saying, they get subsidised for those government things they do. Sample income.
Miriam Crane's off ill today. Otherwise, she could probably provide a bit further background of how her negotiations have been going to date, and she has a better understanding than I do of how it all works. So, my apologies.
Do we get quarterly reports from now?
I don't believe we've been receiving any communication from them over the last couple of years since the merger. So this is a case of Miriam, I guess, trying to establish some protocols to make sure that council's investment, because we do invest in this group, we're getting value for money, and we're not duplicating roles that council undertakes and that they undertake separately.
This is in the 3 years and 15 days, and it has in it the council CDC will provide quarterly written reports. CDD staff will meet monthly with council public relations officers. But no doubt that hasn't been occurring.
Mr. Mayor, with the addition of councillors being on the board, I think I'd be happy to move that recommendation.
Move Councillor Phillips, second to Councillor Bowden. All in favour? Carries.
Item 8.4 is the development applications approved for April, to be noted.
Move Councillor Kelly, second to Councillor Stewart. All in favour?
Item 8.6.1 is council water restriction policy and procedures. This relates specifically to the Gundagai water reticulation system. The former council had some policies. They've now been brought into line with the standard templates of CGRC's policy templates. Happy to take any question on board, but it's really just adopting these policies for the new council.
The one we had.
Yeah.
Well, I believe if it's worked successfully in the past, we should just continue it on.
Yeah, no issues with it.
I'll move that.
Move Councillor Phillips, second to Councillor Graham. All in favour?
Item 8.7.1 is the operations report for May 2019, and there's a recommendation there that the report be received.
Through the chair, I just congratulate some of your staff. There's been I've received quite a few phone calls about that Cabarralong Road and what an improvement it's been. And with Kevin away, Dennis took on a leading role and did a fantastic job. And I just like to congratulate the finished product is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I've taken about 6 or 7 phone calls from people on the eastern side of that road who are really delighted with what's happening.
Better than what it was.
We'll certainly pass those congratulations on the staff. They are doing an amazing job.
Right. I'd like to move that recommendation. Move Councillor Nicholson, second by Councillor Graham, all in favour.
Item 8.8 is the report on Bongongalong Creek Bridge. The recommendation is that council approve an amount of 123,100 for the bridge construction to be brought forward and funded through the 2018-19 roads budget, and council approve Murray Valley Piling to undertake the construction of the new bridge. It's quite we've used Murray Valley Piling on a number of bridges in this locality, and they always give you value for money and the best price. This is quite an urgent situation where we had an existing proposal from them. The bridge has been recognised as a significant risk, and due to that, I'm recommending that council avoids the tendering process and accepts that price as a value for money price in an emergency situation.
I move the recommendation.
Just on that before we move, is that late August complete start or late August completion? Just somewhere in it. I just think that was just a.
I think it'll be late August start with the environmental things they've got to go through,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
That was going to be because they can whack them up pretty quickly. I just because no doubt I've had a few copies asked me, and I just want.
Yeah. Can I suggest that Matt's back at work on Thursday this week, and he'll probably put some media correspondence about this particular project into our newsletters, and I'll make sure that those dates are highlighted in that media release.
Yeah, just so we can let them know for sure that they just when you read through to make sure. All right, let's move Councillor Graham, second to Councillor Nicholson, all in favour. Three. 162.
No 160, isn't it?
Page 160, item 8.10.1 is the maintenance of public open spaces at Stock and Bingle and Wallenbean. Wayne's put this report together, I guess, for you to be informed, but also endorse that this is the way that they'll undertake maintenance on those particular sites, giving his review of those particular villages.
Do you want to talk about the dead trees, mate? Good, yeah. Oh, right, that was gone too far. Sorry, mate. On the wrong one. I thought it was the one.
Through the chair, Wayne, what would on page 161, all those things that you're going to do, what roughly for a village like Wallenbean and Stocking Bingle, what's that going to cost on an annual basis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's unknown at this stage in regards to an overall summary cost. The works will be planned within the existing budget, so whatever the funding currently exists will allow us to undertake the relevant amount of work. So basically the available funds will dictate the level and the amount of work. The main issue is about taking the proactive approach and working with the communities in determining a long-term strategy about how we're going to look after their town. So From council's perspective is that we need to be seen and acting as that they're no different to Cootamundra or Gundagai, and that they need to be involved and participate in the maintenance operations within their village. And if we can get them to participate in that, all the better for us. So in regards to finances, it's really on available funds to do what we can. But the community is embracing our proposal at this stage. But also, it's a need to formalise. At the moment, there's a lot of work being done that's not formalised. So we need to lock it in and make sure that everything's done in accordance with policy and regulation.
So will this then carry on to the other villages?
Oh, well, I mean, I suppose that's up to the relevant manager to make that determination and address the issues that he has to deal with. I'm not aware of the issues that he has. I've only dealt with the 2 villages which come under my control and met with those particular community groups and expressed their concerns and ways that we can move forward. But I certainly imagine that'd be the direction. That'd be up to the manager to make that comment.
So
Yeah.
you're saying
You might.
villages here don't come under your control?
No. What we've done in the structure that was adopted by council is we have our operational areas, particularly our engineering services, and our parks and gardens split into localities. So you've got a manager responsible who lives in those particular localities, taking responsibility. So in terms of our parks and gardens, Wayne looks after the Cootamundra area and Andrew looks after the Gundagai area. So Wayne's looking after the parks and gardens within the villages of Wallenbean and Stock and Bingle, while Andrew will look after the villages of Corlack and Tumbalong, etc.
Shouldn't we have through the chair, if I may, wouldn't it be easier if we had the same position for all our villages, and that way it'd stop other villages, like the villages in the Gundagai end of the Shire. Why can't we have what they, and that's what we want to avoid.
Dead trees get removed no matter where they are.
We are.
Yeah. So at a management level, Andrew and Wayne will communicate and make sure that we've got consistency across the way that we manage our villages. Wayne, I guess, is new to the organisation and is determining a framework for how he's going to manage his villages. And now these guys are talking, and there'll be some consistency brought through.
Just on that, I mentioned to Phil this afternoon. At some stage of the workshop, or whatever, I'd like to have where we get the staff structure right from the top, right to the person between the bottom, and things like this. So, all right, so Wayne's in charge. His job is this, and this. He's look after Wallenbean and Stock and Bingle. Andrew's this, and then same on engineering, whatever. So we know who the exact person is to talk to about something. If we get a complaint from a community person, yeah. I feel agreed. Yeah.
So we started that process at a councillor workshop recently where we presented the new management team and told them what their responsibilities for. I've got a structure chart now that flows out all the staff in our organisation. So I'm happy to showcase it at an upcoming workshop so that everyone's familiar with the key contacts and who does what in our organisation.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is important to note that Andrew and I do communicate on a regular basis. Yeah. So, in regards to street tree policy and all the issues, we are working as a team in developing those strategies. It's just that I'm actioning a particular a program at this point in time, and it was important that you understand where we're coming from in regards to our methodologies, because the last thing I think we want to do is to have community members approach you and raise particular issues that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So it's important that you're aware of what's happening.
That's what I reckon. We just dedicate the workshop to go right through that structure, and we know that you're Corlack, Wallenbean and Stock, and Andrew's the others, and whatever anyone's job like Glenn. So,
and likewise, in terms of the engineering, so the roadworks that are happening, you've got Matt looking after Gundagai and Mark looking after Cootamundra, but those guys set their programs by sitting down together and looking at what resources they've got available and collectively share solutions and share resources where appropriate. That's the way we're operating as a management team. but it gives ownership and pride into a particular area by someone who's living in the area and looking after the area. And that's the structure that you as a council adopted, and that's what we've implemented.
We got a recommendation there.
Mr. Mayor, just before we do, my understanding with the Morley's Creek Bridge that was didn't fit was that it was going to be installed over in Wallenbean. So, do we have an update on that installation of that bridge?
Going through, Mr. Mayor, I've met with the local community and that issue has been raised. We've had discussions with relevant staff, and I'm currently addressing a whole number of issues which the community have raised. They've sent me a detailed breakdown of all their issues, and what we're doing together is developing a program of delivery. So that's in train now, and that's happening. We've already serviced a number of their requirements that they've indicated at Wallenbean, and that is one that's on the list, which will be addressed.
It's going to become a tourism icon, that bridge. Tell its own story. Thanks for that, Wayne. So would someone like to move that recommendation? Move Councillor Nicholson, second Councillor Bowden. All in favour?
Item 8.10.2 is a street tree management policy. It's in draft format, and the recommendation is seeking to put it on public exhibition for a period of 28 days to seek community comment through appropriate advertising, and that all costs associated with the street tree policy developed be funded from the street tree audit budget. Do we have a street tree audit budget? We must do.
Yeah, we did. I think we allocated a couple $100,000 or something last year to street tree audit.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, that's right. There's $100,000 that was allocated. We've spent about 55 or 52,000 of that, and this will be undertaken as part of that process because it's one of the recommendations of the audit. That's part that at this stage has been completed, and which I'll also be presenting to council. The process is that once this policy is adopted, I'll then be submitting the audit, which will complement the policy.
Through the chair, if I could make comment. On page 169, item number 17, if everybody reads that, then refer back to page 161 and look at dot point 1, where we can removal of dead and unwanted trees. But then when you go to our street tree policy, in rural areas, the trees that do not pose so and so. But they can be leaning over our infrastructure, our farmers' assets, and we're obligated, if we adopt this, we can't touch the tree. You got to let it fall on our assets, which cost us thousands of dollars. Yet if you live in a village, you can remove it if it's unwanted or dead. I just find that contradictory. Then you go across to page 171, item 31. I know we've never pursued this, but it is a fairly strong statement. Private trees that have roots that have invaded council's underground services will be responsible for the full cost of the associated service and repair of the said services. Yet, no resident can claim any assistance from council trees that disrupt or upheave their fences or their driveways, but council can pursue the residents. I find that one also very frustrating.
Through the chair, Councillor Palmer, I think when Matt Stubbs gets back, it would be good to have a discussion about this because I've been involved with him in relation to some land up my way with a neighbour of mine, and also where we're doing a fence, a boundary fence joining the road reserve. And under the new Biodiversity Conservation Act, they have huge power. So this lady came up, very, very good, but we were just going to, go along, pull down the fence, get the dozer to knock down the old dead tree that's going to fall over the fence, this and that. We are not allowed to touch those trees, right? And I just jokingly said to her, I said, well, when this dead tree falls over the new fence, I'll send you the bill. She said, no, you won't. That's your problem. But so the word common sense in relation to all this type of stuff has gone right out the door. And she said to me, they are sweating on this act of waiting for someone to make a mistake so they can sue and make an example.
But then on 167.
So we just, you know, from a practical point of view, you know, my neighbour commissioned a report that's costing somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 to go along and identify which trees he could and could not drop. I went along with her and she said, oh, there's a few here. I said, don't worry about it. When they fall on the new fence, we'll just tie it up. She said, you're not allowed to burn those if they fall on the new fence. And I said, well, someone else might drop a match on.
Were they actually on? They weren't on the boundary, so because there's a thing here.
They were on the council reserve. So on the council road reserve,
yeah,
we are not allowed. And then, yeah, and supposedly according to her under the Biodiversity Act, people cannot go along and cut wood on council reserves either, right? But she's been ramping up our way since just of late.
In the rural area, if there's a boundary on your fence line, it's deemed to be in the private property and it's not under this act. It's, yeah.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, the act applies on both both on council-owned land and also private land, but we can only address the issues associated with council land. I think that, I mean, the issues which have been raised are good, legitimate issues that have been identified, and that's the person why we go into public exhibition. I mean, we really want to stimulate conversation and get people to realise that there are lots of issues associated with tree. People don't realise the complexity that now exists, especially with the biodiversity regulations that now come into force, which now override all other policies and regulations associated with vegetation. So the purpose is to get that feedback, and then we make the relevant changes, which are still have to be within the rules and regulations and statutes and etc. that exist.
But what I'm saying, if the tree's on the boundary, it's the private landholders. He's got to look after it. Like if he wants to do something, cut it down. Whether this same rule applies, but it says even here it's not under this policy.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Mayor. This policy only deals with trees identified on council controlled land.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and I'm just expanding on what Wayne just said. Council itself had the same issues when the Adjunbilly Hill was done, because they were there for 2 days going on identifying some dead trees that had possums in it, possibly had possums in it, had this, had that, could not be dropped, you know, for different reasons. So the council itself has borne the cost of all this type of stuff too, and that was a significant number of trees down through that area.
Wayne, just while we're there, do you want to just make comments, it might be picked up by the paper too, about the new essential about, because we know they basically raped some bloody trees in Cooter last year and they've done them here, that about the bars pruning that we've now, hopefully they're not going to do that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. At the moment, until we get a policy, we're really hamstrung in regards to how we can control other authorities who work within the realms of council land. Example, you know, energy, gas, telecom, etc. And the problem is that they're actually working on or around council assets. And the problem we have with essential energy, and when I say essentially the power authorities who go in and regularly prune our trees, is they go in with one purpose, and that's to prune a tree to suit their purpose of having clearance between the tree and the power line. But what they're actually doing is they're using very poor pruning techniques, and what they're and as a consequence, they're removing a liability from themselves onto us, because that tree becomes a liability for us. It's our asset. Those trees which are pruned and shaped in the form of a vase become quite structurally unsound. And they then become a risk to our community and also a cost to us. Now, until a policy is adopted, it's hard for council to go into negotiations with that with that power company to say, well, this is how we expect things to be done. But we have that right. I mean, this is our asset. And the tendency would be is that the General Manager and the Mayor and myself will meet with senior staff from Essential Energy once our policy is adopted. And we will be requesting that every time they come into this Shire, they must abide by our policy. Our policy is developed around their rules and legislation, so the policy does not ignore their issues. But what it does do is force them to undertake proper agricultural practices. And that is no more bars, pruning, and etc. So, but it's up to council to enforce that. And I certainly intend to do that once the policy is adopted and put in place with the support of council and the associated staff.
Yeah, I really applaud you for that, Wayne. I think we need to certainly talk on and change that.
So certainly council has just identified a number of changes or a number of clauses that might need to be reviewed. But the recommendation is that we put it on public exhibition, and maybe as a council we might review those clauses and send in feedback to Wayne, so that we get it refined, so that when it does come before council in due course, it's what we intend to move forward with.
Move Councillor Oden, second Councillor Nicholson. All in favour, ladies for trees.
I think we're on page 182. The end is near. Notice of motion put forward by the Mayor, McAllister, in relation to the Cootamundra indoor pool weekend hours.
Just I put that forward. I just said that some people approached me that would prefer to see it opened a longer on Saturday, or the hours moved a bit later. So they thought to utilise it, the pool, because a lot of people do work 5 days a week, or Saturday mornings, and those that work 5 days a week usually try and get a bit of housework, washing, like kids' sports. I know they go all Saturdays, but you know, they like to do things early and sort of go for a swim or in the pool later, you know. But, so whether it's extended hours or whether it's moving the 3 hours, I think what it is now, to more 11 to something like that, I don't know. We probably need to look at that and other issues.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like to add a amendment to that council, without putting a time frame on it, investigate all options of the looking after council-owned facilities in regard to whether we look at staff or contractors at some point in the future.
I got no problem with that. That's been added.
Through the chair, the point is right here and now, right in front of us, we've got a multi-million-dollar asset, which is underutilised because of staffing constraints or council, I don't know what you call it, council budget restrictions. But the weekends, we used to have people from your town come across to Cootamundra to use our pool. They now go to Junee because of the hours of operation in Junee are far superior to Cootamundra. We need this pool facility open all day, Saturday and Sunday. That's my point.
I agree with you. It's a big asset, probably sitting there a lot of times not open. And
there's no disrespect meant to staff at all, but we've got to find a way, an economical way, to have this pool open over the weekend.
Which is what is in the Mayor's notice of motion, that we investigate feasibility. And like, I think we've got to look at how we can make it happen, whether it's later, earlier, 2 sections or something, but we need a report.
I don't know, even through our web page or whatever, we could do a bit of a survey of people, you know, what time, just gauge interest, you know. It doesn't just have to be weekends, it can be any day of the week, or any suggestions how to utilise that, the heated pool.
I note the addition of the letter from Helen Axton, our pool manager. Oh, yeah. That doesn't sort of answer. It talks about some points that happen at the pool and the way they manage it, but it doesn't sort of support or not support the motion.
There's points where it could be done at other times.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy to.
I think it needs investigating, and not, as I said, if it's even one way, is if we gauge support by putting something on the website.
Yeah, so the motion that you're looking at talks about council investigating the feasibility of extended hours, operational use, and that's exactly what the staff intend to do. Wayne's looking at a complete review of our recreational assets, including the pools, to work out what is probably the best and most efficient way that we can offer those services to the community. So we'll step through a process and get that underway and get a report back to council.
Just through the chair, if I could, just in regards to a feasibility study, that's fine, but as long as it doesn't progress and take the next 3 or 4 months, like the usage that's required right here and now.
You know, this is a single out issue, I think, and I think what Wayne's talking about, like, it's 5.5 months, I think, time frame. But I just think this is something like this, you know, we've got an issue, let's look at this probably now under itself, you know, and going back to the public again, yeah, we'll have an answer in 6 months, 7 months, you know. I just think we need to get on some of these things. Wayne.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the comments which have been made, and there's certainly no restriction from us doing a preliminary investigation into the issues which have been raised here tonight. The process that I'm looking at is certainly more long-term, and it gives a more long-term strategic plan about how we manage not just our pool and recreational facilities throughout the Shire, but I'm more than happy and able to come up with I suppose, an interim investigation to cover some of the issues which have been raised here, but remembering that it will only be an interim, and we'll look at more permanent long-term investigation down the track if council say wishes to go down that way.
Any other comments? We've got the motion now, and Gil added an amendment to it. Would you like to move that? Right, move Councillor Kelly, second to Councillor Stewart. All in favour?
Item 10.1 is questions with notice. Both questions are from Councillor Bowden. Do you want to speak to them?
Yes, I do. Thank you. These questions, which are actually the other way around, because the first one is what components are covered in Council's disaster plan, and then please describe Council's recovery resilience plan, came out of the small business friendly conference where the Deputy Mayor of Lismore and the General Manager of, is it Tweed Valley or Tweed Heads or the Tweed, were talking about how they were impacted by the floods and how that was massive and how, you know, like businesses were just, you know, wiped out, and then moving on to the recovery plan, you know, where things could get back on track again. And like the Mayor and I carried on a little debate about why can't you just ask, do we have a disaster plan? Do we have a recovery plan? And I try and avoid yes, no answers, because that would have been really easy. So that's why I put in those components. And I spoke to Susan about it, and actually the general manager of one of the councils talked about over Easter, they had an IT disaster where they were hacked and lost information for 6 days. And Susan said, we have a comprehensive IT disaster plan. I just think we need to be, as councillors, we need to be aware of what's in place. Do we have a disaster plan if a pandemic comes through? What are our recovery plans? So the answer is, you know, we do, we'll find them, and they should be subject of a workshop. But it is a strategy that I put them there just so that you as councillors are aware and that the community is aware that we are looking after them. So the answers are adequate. Thank you.
The answers provided from the council officer talk about us we've certainly been able to provide detailed information at the council workshop, but I can assure you we do have M plans in place. They're not called disaster plans now, emergency management plans. We have a local emergency management committee. We have a local emergency management officer, and we meet regularly with all the emergency service agencies and plan on how we will manage various types of disasters, such as a flood. We have a specific flood plan as part of our M plan. We've certainly got all those practices in place, or developing as a new council. We've got some more things coming together, but the community can pretty much rest assured that we've been thinking about these things for a long time. We've got a good history on how to manage disasters, but happy to run through the whole emergency management plan. Disaster recovery in terms of business continuity and things like that, it's a different kettle of fish, and we're happy to workshop that through as well.
We also have $50,000 allocated to a business continuity and disaster recovery plan from the second round of merger funding.
I think if we get them out there, just send people copies to read before we, do we want a workshop on it, or? I know.
Send a copy, we'll read it, and then if we.
Well, we want a workshop, yeah. I know it was all like floods in 2012, still on and utilised it. It worked perfect when police, ambulance, SES, council.
I know we've had fire emergencies, Cootamundra. It's an amazing place to go and be.
It's a bit like that storm you had.
Was in the old council table. Except there's not a lot of room to go stop to, or just it's amazing in the old council table how we turned into an emergency operation centre and everyone come together and really amazing thing to see there.
So they used to meet, I remember in that time, we'd meet 3 or 4 times a day. This was
Yeah. So we've actually purposely setting up the Bradman Street Depot as our emergency operations centre. It has excellent facilities for emergency services and the appropriate council staff to come into place and really utilise those facilities without interrupting all the other day-to-day operations. So, yeah, we've been working on that for a while. Glenn's our local emergency management officer at the council. So, yeah, we can certainly bring discussions back at a council level and provide copies of our documentation.
Yeah, Phil. Also, we've had a practice set up actually at Cootamundra-Gundagai, and the next meeting is going to be here. The next LEMC meeting is here, so we'll probably do the same thing at that. So when we had our meeting, we actually set it up and put all their tabards on and set it up as if there was an emergency, because there's a system that we use, and we could utilise that computer up there too. In regard to they're going paperless, and we're training everybody in that, but we're sort of kicking goals with that at the moment, and we've got plans in place for all sorts of things. And every emergency service at the moment has been asked to put forward something that they go to. So we would have an emergency plan, say a truck rollover, an emergency plan for a flood, a fire, and because I'm particularly having issues at the moment with stock crate rollovers. So we've got one of them ready, because they had an issue down here on the highway where the SES here had some sort of issues. But yeah, it is. We're going ahead really well.
right. Now we've got the late reports.
Oh, sorry.
Bit of move and a second for that move. Councillor Kelly, second to Councillor Palmer. Right, the minibus.
We'll follow the order, will we? 8.2.3 is the investment report.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, yeah.
So April, so it's submitted as a late report.
I'll move that. Move Councillor Kelly. Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? Carried.
Item 8.7.2, a report on the council minibus with a recommendation that the minibus be retained for a period of 6 months and a report on the bus usage, income and cost against the bus be prepared and submitted to the November 2019 ordinary meeting.
Yep. Well, just before we second it, who's going to make the rules and regulations? That's the big thing. And who can use it, who can't use it?
So we'll draft a set of guidelines for the use of the bus, and we'll put it back in front of councillors via email. So we'll tic tac until we've got it, so that everyone's quite comfortable with the arrangement.
And
if that's appropriate,
induction day, I think, where we can induct whoever wants to come on the second morning.
only volunteers who are inducted into the council workplace are allowed to drive the bus, and that'll be part of the guideline.
And from where will it be? Like, who will look after the bookings of the bus?
So we're looking at Mirrabooka at Gundagai, who have offered that service that they've done previously with a Valmar bus. They're happy to do it, but we'll write some guidelines around it and make sure that we've got it right before we engage with them. And
could I then suggest, because a number of things have to be put in place, including the public being notified that we're doing this trial period, that it start from June and go till November, so that it's a full 6 months of usage?
Or if the general manager could write the draft in time for June 1, which is only a few days away.
No, the June meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so give us a month to get that locked into place.
yeah, there's no problem on a short turnaround of getting the guidelines. We've got a set of guidelines already. We just need to add appropriate clauses to meet the needs of our community. So
pass it tonight. Can we work past it? We work the guidelines at a workshop.
absolutely. That's I'll distribute them via email, and if everyone's comfortable with the guidelines, after a bit of back and forth, we'll adopt them on the spot and get it going and trial it. We'll change the guidelines if we need to through the trial. Yep.
Through the chair, if I may, I initially, when we spoke about this, I expressed some concerns about affecting other transport companies in Gundagai and Cootamundra. I noticed a couple of things in here, and I'm happy enough to go through a 6-month trial if that's what we need to do. But like, even when it has been in our control, the roof's been damaged by an unknown driver. Like, we need to make sure those things are really signed off. Like, obviously, whoever was driving it was a council employee or a councillor, but they damaged it, and so we weren't. Those things, even when it was in our own control, we need to make sure that Mirrabooka have got a really set of program or policy to make sure it doesn't come back down.
No different. I think when you hire a vehicle, you have to go around and tick it off. But of course, because no one owned up to that, surely it wouldn't be hard to try and find out where it was done. We don't get any insurance for it because you can't identify the driver. Anyway, I agree. We've got to look at it. Like in Gundagai, I can't say it's really affecting anyone because I haven't got anyone with a bus that's small. And, you know, taxi, I don't know. And we don't have a hire place, so we don't have bus vehicles. But I agree. I think it's well worth a trial.
Could I ask when then we'll be able to let the public know?
Well, it'll be a open meeting, so it'll know.
As soon as councillors sign off on the guidelines and tell me that they're happy with it, we'll advertise it straight away through our media offices.
Through the chair, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I know in Cootamundra, the ex-services club has got a similar size bus, and I know we regularly use it as the high school to take small groups of kids at no fee. Yeah, and I don't know how we're going to compete with that, and all you have to do is fill it up. But yeah, it's problematic.
The same sort here, you know, I've had some schools ask me they only want to send 10 to a workshop at Tumbarumba or Tumut or Jugiong or something. They can't get more, so Tumba a bit further. Can't get enough parents to do it, so they don't go. So, you know, yeah. But I
Mr.
think
Mayor,
they would be willing to pay a fee.
Mr. Mayor, can I
It's,
suggest that
council asset.
we incorporate discussions with the staff at Mirrabooka who have had experience with the Valmar bus and know, the current fees and charges and the administration side of it. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding, Councillor Kelly, is that Valmar is not exclusively for the aged, but pays has particular preference to the aged and the isolated
Fixing up the doctor's appointments.
to go shopping, or occasionally they may have a luncheon or something like that.
Two of them have got a bus, but when I was talking to Tony tonight, he said something else. He said I asked them to have a bus, but theirs was one was donated to them, and they mainly just use it for elderly because they haven't got a Valmar. That's cool.
Through the,
Righto, we've got a recommendation. Oh, yeah, go on,
Yeah.
Mark.
through the chair, one of the supporting letters that come in suggested that it be modified to take disabled access. So I would suggest that would not be practical.
That's where the Valmar one is.
Mr. Mayor, thanks to the community for their submissions. It just shows the involvement of our communities when they feel passionately about an issue. So we appreciate their participation and input.
Yep. Input. The best thing you can get from the community. Right, so we've got a recommendation there. Move Councillor Palmer. Second, Councillor Phillips. All in favour? Carry.
Item 8.7.3 is Cootamundra Rugby Union Club request for financial assistance to complete the Union Club facilities project. And there's a recommendation there that council approve the acting general manager to investigate available options for the council to provide financial assistance to the rugby club in accordance with legislation under the Local Government Act.
Through the chair, there was a good meeting we had there. It's a fantastic facility, needs to be completed. They haven't done their costings right. They're 120,000 short. Let's hope that 120 finishes the job. Council has not, even though they suspect we have, council has not retained the GST, has accounted for the GST correctly. So there's no honeymoon there for the rugby club. To me, there's two ways you can do it. You can either do it through a loan, or my personal preferred way would be to treat it as a sundry debtor. And I feel that the outstanding amount of 120 would be repaid over 5 years with interest charged yearly at 4% per annum on the outstanding balance as a sundry debtor rather than a loan.
120 they end up on, wasn't it?
Through the, no, it was 100.
Yeah.
It was 100,000. Yeah, but I think
they got some,
he
mate.
had funding.
Yeah.
He had other funds.
He wanted 100.
So he was wanting 100, and his terms were like to pay 20,000 plus the interest each year on a diminishing scale. Like first year, 20,000 plus 4% on 100. Then the next year, 20,000 plus the 4% on 80, so forth. I think this recommendation is just sort of putting us on a bit of a wheel again. I'm in agreement with Councillor Graham. I think we should get a resolution here now and do that so they can get on with the job and finish the facility. It's a good facility, as we saw. It's going to open up the opportunity for even international level football there. Like I could see women's test match being played there. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't. The facility is terrific. And it's also a facility and a venue for the general public as well, which will be another opportunity to the broader community. So I'm in agreement with Councillor Graham. I think we should make a resolution here now, whether it be loan agreement, grant agreement, or a sundry debtor. I think we should put it in place and get them on with it.
Local Government Act.
The Local Government Act doesn't preclude you from loaning someone money. It doesn't say you can't do it. But there's specific provisions in the Act that says that you need to seek local government ministers' approval to do something outside the norm, this is outside the norm. So, the legislation doesn't preclude it, but you need to make sure that you.
If I can, Phil, like I did ring Local Government New South Wales, spoke to their legal department there about this, and it's fine for us to do that. They just recommended that we had some form of written agreement with them to cover that. Given that it was a council asset, they couldn't see a problem with it, and the limitations that need ministerial things are if it's greater than 5% of your rate revenue that you're lending, but it isn't, so it fits all that requirement.
I totally agree. Look, it's a good facility and it needs to be finished. You know, it could open up. We've got a few other projects by organisations to come. We've got to realise if they fall short, we might have the same thing on our hands. But I suppose we're getting more money than we are on the investment money. So, you know, if their figures stack up, and if someone else comes to it and their figures stack up, I've got no problems doing it.
Through the chair.
It definitely needs completed.
Oh, well, no, anything being done. And I hear what the other councillors are saying. I prefer the recommendation in the papers where the general manager actually goes and comes up with some options rather than trying to make an ad hoc one here tonight. That's my preference.
Yep. I've got no worries.
I didn't participate in the discussion with the rugby club, so I'm really at a loss to understand what their repayment scheme is. But you guys were, Mark was, so happy to hear other opinions.
Yeah, they presented a fairly simple but comprehensive breakdown of their finances, their financial structure, which we've got there, and they had a fairly straightforward plan of repayment. And it wasn't complicated, it wasn't difficult, but like, I'll just go back to the recommendation, sort of doesn't resolve it, it leaves it still hanging. And I think they're in a situation where they need this now to continue and finish the job. And again, I'll go back to what Councillor Graham said initially, let's, sort this out now. You've got the option of a grant agreement, a loan agreement, or a sundry debtor. And David's recommendation was a sundry debtor that keeps it simple and the interest is paid. And they also want the option that if they want to pay it quicker, fine. And we facilitate that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, if a motion comes out of what Councillor Sheen said, would second that. I think that time is of the essence. So,
Mr. Mayor, for the general manager's information, Cooter are going along quite well in the rugby this year, and they potentially could end up hosting a grand final in that zone. If they do that, that would be a great financial reward for them very, very quickly. So if we delay here, that could potentially stop that, not having the facility ready for the grand final. And it doesn't, the grand final in September, it happens in August. So it's not far away.
Same thing, but if that doesn't finish, they've got Fisher Park. That's where they play now. So that's probably, well, it's an urgency if you want to utilise. They said it's going to take 2 months to finish now. If we get the okay, just with the Sunday debtor, Councillor Graham, was that if it was more likely a smaller amount, or you think we should still deal with 100,000? The one stage.
The figures that we were presented with clearly show that by 1st of June 2020, they had 74 or 78 $83,000 negative out. They said over there, Justin Roberts, Stephen Harvey said they knew about 20-25 work capital. So effectively they come in and knock 50 off by June next year.
And well, the interest rate then, are we guided by the local government that we should have to charge a set interest rate, Phil, on the day?
I haven't done any research into it, mate. I really aren't in a position to answer it.
If I can, they offered the interest rate at 4%, and like it's a lot better than what we are currently getting on our reserves. And I think it's only fair that they do pay interest, because that is then showing the broader community that they are paying their way.
I think that's vital. They've got to pay interest because we'll have everyone coming to us, if you know, certainly. But I've got no problem for the 4%, but I just didn't know if we were bound under local government or under any bodies that we have to charge a certain amount above investment rates or that, for loan rates.
I don't believe we are, because technically it is our asset, and you could grant the money if you wished, but that then would be setting a precedent, which we don't want to set. So they're prepared to pay the 4%, and at that meeting, most of us that were there agreed that was quite acceptable, and it is actually setting the precedent and showing the community that they are paying their way, that they're not getting it for nothing.
Well, I don't think we could grant anymore because we're already granted them something. I'm happy with the 4%, but no problem.
If I could just quickly make a comment, I think everybody in the room would reiterate what most councillors have said. But I ask a general manager, would you be comfortable in setting up a sundry debtors account? Are you comfortable with that solution?
It's just a way that we establish a loan and someone pays money back. Sundry debtors are applicable to lots of different situations.
Can I just suggest that this being an unusual transaction, I run it by our auditors to see if they have a preference on how it's structured?
Well, our decision basically tonight is to do it either way, either the 4%, whatever the advice is.
Well, I'll move that if in accordance with the auditors, that it be set up either a sundry debtor loan agreement or grant agreement. The 4% is paid over that 5-year term that they outlined to us, and put it to the council for resolution.
Could I just say, I don't think we should use the word grant, because we've already given them a grant of 80,000, right? So it could be read that we're going to give another 100 grand, and some smart aleck comes back and says, well, hang on, you gave us a grant, we don't have to pay that back. So it's a sundry debtor or loan, full stop.
That's what I said earlier. I wouldn't like to see it in the grant. No, I'd be quite happy with it. We move Councillor Shane, second the Councillor Graham, all in favour.
Oh.
You got the tree. Second the Councillor Graham, all in favour. Well, he'd put his hand up.
You want to show?
No, I mean the seconding, mate. He's getting trouble. No.
Item 8.9.1 is a Stan Crow Oval Canteen update. This report was prepared by Andrew, and he discussed the proposal at last night's councillor workshop, and the information is there to be received and noted.
Anyone wasn't there? Did they want to make any comments? Or? When I don't think I thought about it since then, but I don't think it was ever put up in front of the groups that the second quotes with the toilets, the 270,000. I can't remember that ever been. That's that new amount, new 10. Sorry, David.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to get there yesterday, but I agree with the mayor. I remember the original funding amount was 164,500, and I found that figure in some documentation about my office. But I can't find anything where we approved an additional second budget of 270.
Yeah, I can never ever. I was thinking after, I can never ever remember seeing that figure anywhere. Like it's been done. Yeah, but that was just,
Yeah, Mr Mayor, as per the information that I provided at the workshop yesterday, like that, I wasn't, I had managers above me at the time who went and approached the GM at that stage, requesting the additional funding. So I can only go by the email trails that are there.
I remember when we met down there and we realised, you know, we couldn't put under that line and we had to move it and all that, but they never ever come back to us with a set that other budget. But not saying nothing wouldn't have changed anything along. Any other comments?
Just a comment in regard to it. This highlighted the shortcoming that, for whatever reason, this council now needs to make sure it has processes in place so these overruns don't occur.
Yeah.
And we have a successful really operations or engineering management skills that manage all these infrastructure builds.
Extremely important.
I'd just like to pass a comment too, Mr Mayor, if I can. The fact that the roof cost $49,000 was $23,000 or $24,000 dearer because the cheaper quote couldn't wait for 8 weeks. I think it's, to be honest with you, it's a joke. If it was my build at home and I was going to save $23,000 or whatever it was, I'm sure I'd be more than happy to wait 8 weeks.
It's large.
Through the chair, just in relation to that, everyone's just thinking that it's the iron. There's a lot of other works that were going in on that price. Yes, it was higher than the previous quote, but the other previous quotes were just for the tin and the sarking and not doing the building trusses work, prepping for tie downs through the block work. So there was a lot more involved in the overall job of the roof.
So they got someone else a quote on the overall, but like this bloke did too. There was.
So then when we put the works out there, we had 2 builders give us prices on the work. We had local plumbers give us quotes on just doing the tin work on its own. And yes, due to the time frame, when we looked at everything, it was a dearer option, but it was also to keep the project running. So yeah, I do agree that price was high, but it was to keep the job going. And there, as I said, there were other works involved, not just iron.
Yeah, actually done. We've got a recommendation there. We haven't moved that, have we? Move. Councillor Nicholson. Second to Councillor Stewart. All right. Meeting closed. Oh, it's sorry.
Just on that, Dan Crow one, did you send those things to the NPA
Yeah.
Did they get recognised through draft and the
They got recognised on open, but I don't know whether they might have already got there, but I don't know.
Through the chair, if I may, they were recognised in the sponsors board that was put up and mentioned also at the opening of the facility. So it was covered in that respect.
No, we always send a letter. Like send it to all and the sporting bodies too, although they use it for the ones like Bendigo, I think. Awesome.
Yeah, just in, through the mayor, if I may, just in the attachments, like, I had a quick look through those. Our draft fees and charges around the Cootamundra sale yards where we brought them up to industry like levels. And I just noted on the Gundagai sale yards, we haven't adjusted those fees. I know you only had one sale a year or something, but I think we should bring them up to standard too, which means a little bit of research that I've done. Put your selling head at $11.75 plus $2.50 at
$11.
$11.75.
Cattle.
Cattle, yeah. And $2.50 across the scale. And I believe council doesn't
It
know.
was never that. It's $7 something on that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Jesus, I think you gotta be, we got the Williams.
Well,
coming up, man. Are you gonna
Sorry,
come
mate.
and take the slack?
We've moved the Cootamundra fees up. And I'm just following protocol. We're going along here. This is the Gundagai yards and like it's a community
How much
asset.
are they? Yes, a cow.
11.75 plus 2.50 over the scale plus $2 scanning. Yes.
It won't come into this year's winter sale.
No, I'm getting it on the book. Yeah.
Again, but I was going to say you wouldn't want to eat them with that first, huh? You're retiring, aren't you?
Yes. Beast.
No, per beast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the thing is, you're getting a bigger and better facility at Yass than you are at Gundagai or Cooter.
Still providing the same service.
I think that needs to be out there, I think.
Yep.
Like the cemetery fees, mate. Like
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, that's I've been through that too. Double checked.
That's we're copping some over here about that.
You got that? 11.75 and 2.50 over the scale.
Yeah, no, it's come up on that one over myself. See? How about we better do the trade waste then? No, we haven't closed the meeting yet. We'll put that on both. How about we put that on both down? It's no
Yeah.
different. It's no different.
I thought we did.
No, we paid.
Didn't they?
Town improvement. I said, we got town improvement. I can do this. We'll do that then. No, we gotta be there. Anyway, the meeting's closed.
We'll get these free green waste in Cooter.
Yeah, have it. No worries.